kids, it's Pastor Rich. You might remember when we talked about the book of Genesis, how sin messed everything up. That is, when Adam and Eve sinned against God, it brought the whole world into a condition of sin and misery. And one of the things that sin messed up is that people and animals no longer would go on living forever. They would die at a certain point. And this is very sad. Over the last couple months, I've actually had some people who were close to me die. And this made me very sad. Now, the people that I knew, they were trusting in Jesus. And so while I'm sad, I'm also happy because the Bible tells us that to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And so for Christians, those who have turned away from their sin and are trusting in Jesus, they can know that if they die, they are going to go to be with Jesus. And this is a wonderful thing. And yet, it is still a sad thing because sin has messed everything up. Well, in Jesus' ministry, when he was going around and telling people about who he was, that he is the king, when he was telling them about how they can be saved by turning away from their sins and trusting in him, he also was healing people. And you remember last week we talked about how he healed the 10 lepers. Jesus was also showing that he was powerful not over only sickness, but he was powerful over all creation. He one time was in a boat and there was a big storm that came about. And Jesus calmed the storm. You see, it showed that he was sovereign, that he was powerful, that he was in control of all of nature. And so Jesus is powerful over sickness, and he is powerful over nature. But do you know he is also powerful over death? Today I want to read a story to you from Luke chapter 8. And it is a story about Jesus healing a woman and about raising a little girl from the dead. Now when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. And there came a man named Jairus, who was a ruler of the synagogue. And falling at Jesus' feet, he implored him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter, about 12 years of age, and she was dying. As Jesus went, the people pressed around him. And there was a woman who had had a discharge of blood for 12 years. And though she had spent all her living on physicians, she could not be healed by anyone. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased. And Jesus said, "Who was it that touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowds surround you and are pressing in on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I perceive that power has gone out from me." And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him, and how she had been immediately healed. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." While he was still speaking, someone from the ruler's house came and said, "Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher any more." But Jesus, on hearing this, answered him, "Do not fear, only believe, and she will be well." And when he came to the house, he allowed no one to enter with him, except Peter and John and James, and the father and mother of the child. And all were weeping and mourning for her. But he said, "Do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. knowing that she was dead. But taking her by the hand, he called, saying, "Child, arise." And her spirit returned, and she got up at once. And he directed something should be given her to eat. And her parents were amazed, but he charged them to tell no one what had happened. And so sin messed everything up. It brought sickness into the world, and it also brought death into the world. But Jesus is powerful over all sickness, and he is powerful over death. In our story, we see that he has the power and the authority to just tell the little girl to rise. The woman who has been sick for a long time only needs to touch his clothing, and she is healed. But Jesus also brings people from spiritual death to spiritual life. Jesus, when he died on the cross, he took the punishment that everybody deserves because of our sin. He took the punishment of those who will trust in him on the cross, so that through his death we might live. Isaiah 53 verses 4 and 5 say this: "Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed." And so it's Christ's death in the place of all who believe that actually brings life. And then 3 days later, after his death, Jesus was raised from the dead. And he defeated death in this way, that he didn't remain dead, but his body was raised. And do you know that the Bible tells us that if we trust in Jesus, not only have we been brought from spiritual death to spiritual life, not only do we know that if we are to die, we can go be with Jesus in the present heaven, but at the end of time, Jesus is coming to judge people. And all those who are trusting in him can know that their very bodies will be changed. If they have died, their bodies will be raised. And if they are alive when Jesus comes, their bodies will be changed. And they will be wonderful bodies that will last us in eternity. Even those of us who are sick and those of us who may have died, our bodies will be raised up and they will be glorified. This is a wonderful thing to look forward to, the resurrection of the dead. So Jesus, he is powerful over nature. He is powerful over all sickness. And he even rules over death itself. Well, I love you guys, and I hope that I might see you around church soon.